Hello everyone, and welcome to a presentation of the Kentucky Weatherization Assistance Program QCI Final Inspection Checklist. My name is Mark Powell, and I will be your presenter today. I hope you will find the information provided to be helpful. You might ask yourself, why has the checklist been created? To provide you with a comprehensive tool to assist you in satisfying the QCI requirements mandated by DOE. Now, as you know, DOE has required that all homes weatherized that use DOE funds from the 2015 fiscal year contract must have all completed jobs post-inspected by a BPI certified quality control inspector. In addition, all measures and incidental repairs performed on client homes must meet the specifications, objectives, and desired outcomes outlined in the standard work specifications for home energy upgrades. It is the QCI's responsibility to ensure that all work measures performed meet these requirements. The QCI is also required to demonstrate due diligence in performing all tasks required of a quality control inspector that are specified in the NREL job task analysis for a QCI and mandated by DOE. Kentucky Housing Corporation has created a detailed step-by-step checklist that outlines all procedures the QCI must perform to satisfy DOE requirements. In the next set of slides, we will go over this checklist in detail so as to help you understand how to effectively use this checklist and perform your duties as a quality control inspector in a manner that satisfies DOE requirements. Now here is a screenshot of the first page of the new checklist. We will take you through each section of the checklist and show you how to fill out each box. We will do that in the following slides to come. Please notice that at the top of the page you will see red buttons. When you use an electronic version of this checklist and have a working internet connection, you can click on each of the buttons to access each website or document listed and also perform commands. The first button, labeled red when clicked on, will take you to the Residential Energy Dynamics website. ASHRAE 62.2 2013 worksheet, so you can use it to perform ASHRAE compliant ventilation input. Now the SWS button will take you to the Standard Work Specifications website. The KHC Wix button will take you to the KHC Weatherization Program Resources website. The Save File button will allow you to save a currently filled out checklist and give it a name of your choosing. The Clear Form button will clear the form to allow for a new project to be entered. And the Print button will allow you to print out the current checklist you are working on. In the slides that follow, we have filled out all sections of the checklist based on a profile of a fictional home that has been weatherized by a fictional agency. Here's an example to illustrate how a section of the first page should be filled out. We start out by filling out each field as follows: agency name, client name, the assigned QCI, the job number, the date, address of the home where the work was performed, the auditor and estimator name, the crew leader name, subcontractors, if that applies, and the type of home being worked on. This particular home is a site-built home, I will note. Then we enter relevant notes about the home and our work project. The notes above give an overview of the home, the year built, the type of heating, etc., to give the reader needed information about the home. We also enter blower door test readings as follows: the pre-test, the post-test, and QCI final blower door test readings. Zone test readings are also entered to reflect each zone pressure test conducted for the attic, the crawl space, and walls if dense pack insulation was installed. And those zonal readings are entered as indicated here by these arrows. Lastly, in the notes section, we also enter any additional relevant information that should be disclosed. These notes were necessary because it needed to be explained that the blower door test readings performed by the QCI was 500 CFM higher than the post blower door test reported by the agency, and that this difference will need to be addressed. In the ventilation section, which must satisfy the requirements of SWS 6-60 through 6.99, we will fill out the following information. Is the dryer vented? Yes, it is. It's vented to the outside. Is the vent material used of a quality used matter that meets the SWS? Was rigid or semi-rigid ducting used? Is the ducting insulated to a factor of R8? If any portion passes through unconditioned space, that will apply. For bathroom number 1, is there an exhaust fan installed, and is it vented to the outside? Yes, it is. If vented, what is the measured CFM used in the flow hood? In this case, we have a measured CFM of 30. Is there an operable window? In this case, we do have an operable window. There is only one bathroom, but if you have 2 or more bathrooms, you will fill out those sections as well for any additional bathroom. In this particular case, we just hit the NA box and fill that out. Now, in the kitchen, we ask, is there an exhaust fan installed? And is it vented to the outside? If it is vented, what is the measured CFM used in the flow hood? In this case, we have a measured CFM of 80. Is there an operable window? In this particular case, there is. Also, is there a gas cooking stove in the kitchen? Let's also look at the notes. We have one bathroom with an operable window. The kitchen had one operable window. ASHRAE compliant exhaust fan systems were installed in the bathroom and kitchen areas and were set to run intermittently. An additional ASHRAE compliant exhaust fan was installed in the hallway and was set to run continuously at 43 CFM. Measured CFM test readings taken during the QCI inspection agreed with agency reported CFM readings. Now in the ASHRAE compliance section, the question is asked, is the target calculation worksheet present in the file? Is the post blower door test ASHRAE calculation in the file? And is it correct? In this particular case, it's not. Were any adjustments required to the required mechanical ventilation made at the final inspection? Yes, there were in this particular case. Another question, is the required mechanical ventilation continuous? Yes. Is there a timer installed on the exhaust fans? Yes, there is. Was the final RMV less than or equal to the 15 CFM de minimis addendum to ASHRAE 62.2 2013. In this case, it was not. Now let's look at the notes regarding this section. An additional ASHRAE compliant exhaust fan was installed in the hallway and was set to run continuously at 43 CFM, which was post-calculated based on the agency post-blower door reading of 1,943 CFM, which proved to be an incorrect final blower door reading. RMV was recalculated based on the actual final blower door test of 2,443 CFM, and the exhaust fan in the hallway was reset to run at 28 CFM to meet the ASHRAE requirements based on recalculated RMV. Any work performed in the heating-cooling section must satisfy SWS 5.30 through 5.33. Starting with the first box, the question is asked, was there a replacement unit installed? The answer to this particular case, no. But if there had been a replacement, was there documentation in the file to justify the replacement? In this particular case, that does not apply. Were there pictures in the file of the unit that was replaced? Once again, does not apply for this particular case. The next question asked, were any repairs made to any unit? And the answer is yes. Is there documentation in the file to justify them? And yes, there is in this particular case. Next question, are there pictures in the file? Yes, there are. Another question that will be asked, were filters left with the client? If a unit was replaced, were operating instructions left with the client? In this particular case, that will not apply. The next question that will be asked is, was a clean and tune performed on any unit? The answer is yes. Are the units in the home properly vented in accordance with the applicable codes? The answer is yes, after repairs were made. This next box, if there is a masonry chimney serving any combustion appliance, did the chimney have a liner? After repairs, it was we noted on the work order, the chimney did have a new liner system installed, which does meet the applicable codes. Now let's look at the notes. A new chimney liner system was installed for the furnace. New B-vent system was installed for the water heater. Gas shutoff valves installed for the gas lines servicing the furnace, the water heater, and gas cook stove. Furnace, water heater, and gas cook stove all received clean and tunes due to high CO levels noted during pre-inspection test. Now moving down to the duct section. Duct air sealing and insulation must satisfy SWS 3.16 and 4.1601. In the first box, it asked, was duct air sealing present? The answer is yes. Was there evidence of duct sealing performed? Yes, there was. Is there any duct insulation present? The answer is yes. If so, is the R value at least R8? And in this particular case, it is. Were the duct boots and metal fittings insulated? Yes, they were. If duct insulation was installed, is the work of acceptable quality? In this particular case, it's not. It received a failing grade. And to verify airtightness of the duct system, conduct pressure pan test and enter the test readings for each duct location of the home. Pressure pan readings for each duct should test at 1 Pascal or below if ducts were sealed properly. As you will notice, the bathroom duct shows 25 pascals, which does indicate that this duct was not air sealed properly. Now, let's look at the notes section. These notes were made by the QCI. Duct insulation was not installed at the elbows of the ductwork and the warm air plenum was not wrapped. The duct in the bathroom was not air sealed properly, with a pressure band reading of 25 pascals still showing. The work crew will have to return to correct these work quality deficiencies, and a follow-up inspection will be required because of these deficiencies. In this section, combustion safety is governed by the requirements of SWS 2.02. For appliance 1, you will need to enter the following information: the type of unit. In this case, we have a fan-assisted forced air gas furnace. The type of fuel, which we have marked as natural gas. A question will be asked: was a precast test complete? In this case, yes, it was. Next question would be, was there a post-cast test complete? And was there documentation of these in the file? Yes, there was. In the next section, you will need to perform worst-case CAS testing following BPI standard protocols and enter your reading for worst-case depressurization. In this case, we have a reading of a negative 2.0. If the spillage test passed or failed, you would indicate pass here for this particular test that was performed. The worst case draft reading, whether it passed or failed. In this case, it passes. Worst case CO reading, the ambient CO. For additional appliances, you will enter the same information as it applies. Type of furnace, or type of unit, type of fuel. Was a precast test complete, and was there documentation to substantiate that test being performed? Was there a post-cast test complete? And same documentation would be required to verify that. Worst case scenario test readings, spillage test results, worst case draft, whether that passes or fails as well, worst case CO reading, and the ambient CO readings. If any of the test readings exceed the BPI standard maximums or fail other tests or code requirements as they apply, you would need to enter that information in your notes and note solutions that are required to correct the applicable issues that you find. We don't have an additional appliance 3, so we check NA for that section. We do have a gas range in the kitchen. The question will be asked, were the distribution lines checked for leaks? Yes, they were checked. What is the undiluted oven carbon monoxide reading? This particular test reading yielded a test reading result of 78 parts per million. We also test the CO output for each burner on the stovetop. In the rear burner, one burner tests 5 parts per million. Another burner tests 7. On the front section of burners, we have a CO reading for one burner of 8 and a CO reading of 6. All readings are within safe limits. Was any service required? Yes, a clean and tune was required, and that was performed on the gas range. Now let's take a look at the notes section. It says here, stated by the QCI, that clean and tunes were called for on gas furnace, gas water heater, and gas cook stove. Chimney liner and roof cap assembly was installed to bring the unlined masonry chimney that services the furnace up to code. A new B-vent system was installed for the water heater to bring it into code compliance. Shut-off valves were installed for all 3 gas appliances to bring them into code compliance. All 3 gas units passed test outs. Worst case CAS testing was performed. All applicable units passed worst case CAS test. The health and safety section is governed by SWS 2.03 through 2.07. First question you must answer. You have to indicate if a working smoke alarm and a carbon monoxide alarm is present, and determine if each one meets the requirements of the program. You also need to determine if lead-based paint is present, and in this particular case, lead-based paint is indeed present. And if so, verify that lead paint testing was performed. Is there a lead test kit in the file? Was there a client sign-off to verify that they had received the proper education and received the Renovate Right pamphlet? If LSW was required, we also need to state and find out, is there sufficient proof of it being performed in the file? With asbestos, we also determine if asbestos-containing material or vermiculite was discovered and addressed, if it does apply. In this particular case, none was detected. You also need to determine if knob and tube wiring is present in the home. In this case, it was not, but if it was it addressed properly? In this particular case, it was not applicable. Was there an unvented space heater present in the home? This particular case, there was not. If there had been, was there a document in the file to show the client acknowledges this? Now, let's look into the notes made. This home was built in 1947. 10 sites were tested for lead. 2 of the 10 sites tested positive for lead at the front and back door interior casing and stop framing areas. Lead test kits were located in the file. The test kits were labeled and identified with the job and areas of the home tested. Lead-safe work practices were called for on the work order. Photos were in the file to document LSW, and the appropriate forms were filled out to verify LSW was performed properly by the certified renovator in charge of the project. There was no indication that any areas of the home contained asbestos or vermiculite, but no asbestos testing could be performed to verify this. The next section we move to is base load measures. They are governed by SWS 7.8 through 7.88. First question that is asked, were lighting retrofits completed? Yes, they were. Are they in compliance? Of course, we asked that question as well, and yes, indeed, they were. Was the domestic hot water tank insulated to R24? Yes, it was in this case. Excuse me. Was the hot water heater replaced? In this case, it was not. If it had been replaced, is there supporting documentation in the file to justify the replacement? In this case, it does not apply. Now, were the water lines insulated going 6 feet out from the tank on both water lines? Yes, indeed, they were. You will also need to take the hot water temperature and record the reading, and note whether or not an adjustment in water temperature was necessary. Next question, were low flow shower heads installed? Yes, they were. Were aerators installed for any of the faucets? No, they weren't in this particular case. Now let's take a look at the notes. The hot water heater was insulated, and the mode of installation and materials comply with SWS 7.8 through 7.88. The next section we are going to go through is attic. Attic is governed by SWS 3.10 and Section 4.10. First question is asked, determine if the attic was insulated. Yes, it was. Was attic air sealing performed? Yes, indeed, it was. Is there an attic entry access, and is it insulated properly? In this particular case, yes it is. Next question. Are there depth rulers present in various areas of the attic to indicate uniform depth of the attic insulation that was installed? Are there flags installed to mark the location of any junction boxes? Indeed, there are. Are flue dams present to isolate and prevent flues or other heat-producing devices from touching blown insulation? Yes, they are present. Insulation bag count, date present. Is there a certificate of insulation to attest to the number of bags that were installed and the date installed? Yes, there is. Were knee walls addressed? In this particular case, that does not apply. Was there any attic exhaust venting? No, doesn't apply. Next question. Is the attic ventilation in place sufficient to meet program requirements? Yes, it is. Now we look at the attic insulation grade assigned by the QCI inspecting this completion. Is the installation a grade 1, 2, or 3? In this particular case, he passes the quality of the work and the work itself in the attic section, and he assigns it a grade 1, which is high quality. Is this a mobile home? And was the insulation blown from the roof? And if so, how was the work verified as being completed? In this particular case, that does not apply. Was any roof patching work present for this job? That does not apply either. Now, let's take a look at the notes. The QCI states from his inspection that attic insulation work was of very good quality. There was uniform and even coverage with a measured depth of 12 inches. All blocking performed as required. There was good air sealing at the plumbing chase, around the chimney, and the bead vent penetration. All junction boxes found were properly covered and flagged per the program requirements. Actual work performed matched the audit and the work order specifications. Now we move on to the walls section. Walls are governed by SWS 3.11 and 4.11. First question that will be asked, is a bag count info available? Is a certificate of installation in the file to attest to the number of bags installed and the date installed? Yes, there is. Are these walls balloon framed? No, they're not. What type of material was installed? Cellulose or fiberglass? In this case, they installed cellulose. Now, what grade will be given to this work measure? A grade 1, 2, or 3? In this particular case, the wall insulation work received a failing grade, a grade of grade 3. Now let's take a look at the notes. The QCI stated, with regards to the wall insulation work, 2 wall areas above windows on the front and left walls were not insulated. The infrared camera was used to assess this information, and it was also verified by removing sections of siding in the areas questioned. Now we're going to move to the subspace section. The subspace is governed by SWS 3.14 and 4.14. In the first box, the question is asked, is there a crawlspace present? Indeed, there is. Is there a ground cover or a vapor barrier installed? Yes, there is. What is the grade given to this installation? A grade 1, 2, or 3? This work was given a pass grade of 1, deemed as high quality work. Were the piers in the crawlspace wrapped and were the seams sealed? Yes, indeed they were. Was the subfloor air sealed? Yes, it was. what will be the crawl insulation grade given? The crawl insulation grade was a pass with a grade 1. Was the floor insulated? Yes, it was. Was the walls of the crawl space insulated? No, they were not. Were the band joists insulated? No, they weren't. Now, let's take a look at the notes. The QCI states with regards to this work in the subspace are Crawlspace. Good quality job was performed. All floor cavities received R19 craft face bat insulation. Wire staves, known as tiger teeth, were used for support for the bat insulation. Ground cover was installed neatly with correct thickness and lapped up 7 inches along the foundation wall perimeter and secured properly. Ground cover was also secured properly around all piers located in the crawl space. All insulation is secured properly and stand in place. Now let's move on to the doors and windows section, which is governed by SWS 3.12. In the first box, it will ask you the question, were any doors replaced? If any were replaced, you would need to note the location. Is there any documentation and pictures in the file to justify the replacements? Repeat the process of answering these questions. For any windows, we had window repairs involved in this job. There was documentation present, and pictures were also found to document this. Now let's move on to the next slide. In this section, following the doors and windows section, you are prompted to provide details with regards to any window replacements or repairs. In the notes above, the QCI has also noted additional details about door repairs performed as well. Front and rear doors received weather strip kits and door shoes. All windows on all walls received vinyl inside storm window kits. In this section, we will look at the measure list and invoice information that is required to be entered. Were all measures installed? In this case, no, not all measures were installed. Was the invoice checked against the materials used? Yes, it was. Were the measures checked against the standard work specifications? Yes, indeed, they were. Was there proper documentation provided for discrepancies? Yes, there was. And is any follow-up needed in regards to this project? In the QCI comments listed above, let's examine what things were performed to answer these questions. It states here in the notes, the neat audit printout, our recommended work measures agrees with actual work measures documented on the work order. Actual costs are within 10% of estimated cost. Client file contains supporting documentation of materials purchased and issued from inventory for this job. Supporting documentation also was found for labor cost. Billed labor and materials reconciled back with total cost in the supporting documentation of the client file. And other required documentation was found in the client file, and these documents were determined to be completed and of acceptable quality. The next section covers software and files. The first section asks whether energy audit software is being used for this project, or is a priority list being used. In this particular case, we are using the NEAT audit. When it is determined what the work project is using, you will check the appropriate box, and we have checked NEAT. You have choices of also MIA, HEAT, or a priority list in your choices. We are familiar with NEAT and MIA, but HEAT, just for your information, is a cloud-based application that is designed for utilities that run residential energy efficiency programs, and it is DOE approved for national use. You will also need to answer the following questions. Is the audit located in the client file? Do all energy conservation measures, ECMs, show a savings to investment ratio, known as SRR, of at least a 1.0? Was the work order reviewed? In this case, yes, it was. And was the work order reviewed for accuracy, completeness, and does it agree with the audit? Were the invoices reviewed for accuracy and compared with work measures? Were all diagnostic tests reviewed? And were all testing forms related reviewed for completeness? Was there a signed client response included in this file? Yes, in this case there was. The notes that we have here are as follows. Audit software setup and supply libraries reviewed are current and accurate. Audit input was reviewed and deemed correct. Audit report of recommended measures was in the file. All estimated and actual ECM cost had an SRR of greater than or equal to 1.0. The work order was reviewed and agrees with recommended measures reported from the audit. Reviewed invoices agrees with actual cost billed. All diagnostic tests were reviewed and are in order. Client signature was verified on the job completion form. Now, let's move on to the client interaction section. You should interview the client to verify the following. Are all weatherization materials removed from the job site? Yes, they were. Was dirt and debris cleaned up before the crew left or the contractor? Whatever applies. Yes, it was. Was client education provided? Yes, it was. Were all release forms signed by the client? Yes, they were. Was a closeout interview conducted by the QCI with the client? Yes, indeed, it was. Also, too, note, if it applies, were there any client complaints or issues? In this particular job, there were none of those. Were any client complaints addressed? If you have any, in this particular case, that does not apply. Last question, is a follow-up needed with the client? Yes, indeed there is, due to work deficiencies that have been detailed earlier in this presentation. And in the notes section, the QCI has stated that the crew must return to the job site to correct the deficiencies noted below. Now, on this page, you will need to enter notes about corrective actions that are needed that the QCI determined from the inspection that was performed, and also note any missed opportunities the QCI determined could have been performed on this home, but were missed by the Dwelling Needs Evaluator, Energy Auditor. Now, let's go over each measure listed, the issue determined, and the solution needed to resolve each one. With regards to measure number 1 in the area of ventilation and ASHRAE compliance, the issue was an adjustment had to be made by the CFM rate or to the CFM rate of the ASHRAE exhaust fan in the hallway to comply with recalculated required mechanical ventilation caused by a difference in agency post-blower door readings compared to QCI final blower door readings. Solution: the agency needs possible training and technical assistance on performing accurate blower door test procedures, and recalibration of the digital manometer used with the blower door system may also be necessary. Measure number 2 that has an issue and proposed solution is ducts. The issue listed by the QCI is that duct insulation was not insulated at the elbows of the ductwork and the warm air plenum was not insulated. Proposed solution: the crew must return and perform corrective measures to properly insulate the above stated areas. Work must be re-inspected to verify correctness and completeness of the work. The next measure listed is wall insulation. The issue with the wall insulation is wall insulation was not installed above the windows on the front and left walls. The solution is that the work crew must return and blow the empty wall cavities above the windows on the front and left walls per the program requirements. The insulation blowing machine and hoses should also be checked. And there'll be other comments listed below on another page. Work must be re-inspected and verified as correct and complete. Item number 4 is regarding a missed opportunity. The issue is that floor joint areas in the living room and utility room were not evaluated for air sealing, but they show moderate air leakage and need air sealing work performed. The solution? The energy auditor may need training and technical assistance in identifying such leakage sites. Now let's continue on. Continuing on with measure number 5, there was a missed opportunity number 2. The issue stated here by the QCI is that drain pipe penetrations under the tub and sink were not evaluated for air sealing from the crawlspace. Moderate air leakage is occurring. The solution, stated by the QCIs, the energy auditor may need training and technical assistance in identifying such leakage sites. Moving on to the next slide are additional notes that we will go over that pertain to this job that has been written by the QCI. And these will be used to discuss other matters that need to be mentioned with regards to your inspection that were found and how to resolve them. Now, let's go over these additional notes. In the first paragraph, it's stated by the QCI that dense pack insulation installed was not at a high enough compaction rate to achieve better air sealing results within the wall cavities on the front wall and left wall, indicated by zonal pressure readings. The agency should have their insulation blowing machines checked and perform maintenance on it if necessary. The hoses and connections should also be checked for any existing holes or cracks. The wall insulation installed did not uniformly achieve an installed density of 3.5 pounds per cubic foot in all areas installed. In the second paragraph, a review of personal protective equipment indicated the need for new knee pads due to the existing pads becoming loose and not staying fastened properly. 2 of the respirators are not functioning and face fitting properly due to wear and tear, overall age, and need to be replaced. 2 sets of extension cords being used by the crew are developing small cracks in the outer coverings and need to be replaced. Safety data sheets, formerly known as material safety data sheets, were found for all materials except for clear silicone caulk being used. A safety data sheet for the silicone caulk must be obtained, filed, and kept with the crew on all job sites. And finally, listed, the energy auditor has one backup combustion analyzer that needs a new O2 sensor. This sensor needs to be replaced as soon as possible. At the bottom of page 6 of the QCI Final Inspection Checklist, you will need to sign the form, enter the date, enter your BPI certification number, and the expiration date of your QCI certification. Guys, this concludes our presentation of the Kentucky Weatherization Assistance Program Quality Control Inspection Final Inspection Checklist. If you have any further questions, you can contact one of our staff listed here for further assistance. Mr. John Cora, Deanna McCord, Mark Powell, Charlie Smith, and Troy Gosser. Thank you all very much for your time and participation in this presentation. Have a good day.